Morning. Hope you all had a good night's sleep. It's a bit cool around here today. Chapter 19. That evening, after leaving the Cedille, Arthur hurried from his duties to the library. He found Armitage Wriggleworth's book and turned to the section on explorers' families. Maudie rushed in. Sorry, Merriweather needed me to fix her weather glass. I've only just got here. Felicity wanted to try some new spices we got from the Cedille. She's calling them Cedille cookies. And she's now working on a new recipe. Batsorg buns. Oh, that sounds wrong. Arthur flicked through the journal until he reached Vane. So what's your revelation? Arthur examined the family's meticulously drawn explorer symbol. He saw instantly what had been bothering him about the drawing. Something he was certain wasn't meant to be there. The tiniest lemon had been drawn in the centre of the rose. He smiled. Look at that. What? Well, you saw Madame Vane's tattoo when she visited us at Beggins Hall. I'm pretty sure there wasn't a lemon in the middle of the rose. Maudie laughed. Why would anyone do that? The natural light was fading. Arthur lit a candle and moved it close to the page. That's when he saw the strange marks shining in the candlelight, in the spaces between the lines. He held the candle nearer. Curious, he mumbled, and moved his eye line flat to the page. The mysterious markings were letters, hidden writing, not clear enough to read. Of course, he suddenly cried. Wait here, Maudie. I need to pop to the kitchen. Soon Felicity arrived back with lemon juice in a cup and Felicity's pastry brush. He dipped the brush, wiped a little on the side of the cup, then ran it over the paper, where he could see the glint of hidden letters. Slowly words appeared beside the characteristics. It now said, ambitious, shrewd, ruthless. His heart thumped as more words revealed between the lines. This rare dye is collected from the accumulation of crushed shells. Note, the creatures must be alive when crushed in order to secrete the deepest of colour, only produced when the beetle is in a state of distress. The cruelest of exploits. A cold shiver ran through him. The thought of crushing living creatures to colour fabric was horrible. The seemingly innocent passage about how the Vanes had traded with the Spice Islands and formed relationships with them now informed them that they had been an excessive force to take from the indigenous people. The Vanes had even made some of them leave their homes to become servants and had stolen children from their families, setting them to work in mine pitches. The hidden truth revealed that the real Vanes explored by stealing and forcing their authorities wherever they went. But Adora seems so nice, Arthur finished. Maud shook her head. What a horrible heritage. I wonder if she knows about her family's terrible past. What if she does know, and what if she's like her ancestors? This means she might be... Maudie looked horrified. The one behind our kidnapping. Think about it. The offer of a new life. Then when that didn't work, she really didn't want us to go. Then the bandits were paid by someone. She's trying to stop us from looking. Or finding something. Their eyes met. The aurora flew relentlessly. There wasn't much time to enjoy the second continent, flashing by beneath them, as the reality of keeping up the checks and routine of daily life while trying to keep on schedule meant not much time for fun. At nightfall, a week after leaving the Cedille, there was still no sign of the Victorious. The temperature continued to drop rapidly the further south they flew, and any sign of people completely faded away. They were at the most southern point of the second continent, where they needed to land and replenish the water supply. Harriet was looking for the place on the map, called the Last Post. Arthur remembered the name from the day at the Geographical Society. It was where the fuel had supposedly been stolen from the Victorious. Below, there came into view a huddle of buildings, glowing orange in firelight, the only sign of life in the vast, star-speckled, moonless bay. They landed and were greeted by a friendly young woman called Solongo. She was so pleased to see them. Arthur thought it must have been ages since she'd seen another person. Harriet said she'd met her once before, when she travelled this far south a few years ago. After embracing every member of the crew, Solongo made them a fishy soup in a big pot on a bonfire. Fishy soup. The sea lay motionless and the sky cloudless. The dark was so thick at the edges, it was as though the rest of the world had been erased, and all that existed was the small cluster of huts on the shoreline, and the crew of the Aurora grouped around the blaze, faces bathed in warm cinnamon light. The sound of the sea tickling the beach disappeared beneath the deep baritone of Welby's song and the jolly twang of strings. Welby was so different the further away from Longtown they were, more relaxed. The crew sat on great rocks, which looked as though they had been placed there by giant hands in a forgotten time. Solongo fluttered around the group like an excited butterfly, filling their glasses with her acai hut brew, while heads bobbed and feet tapped to Welby's banjo, his white-haired head bouncing with the rhythm of the song. My name is Welby Wildom, my hut's in Solongo's Bay. Here she makes her acai brew, that'll take your breath away. The walls have holes and the roofs are shot, the rafters blow and the floorboards rot. But nevertheless you must confess and hear this from my mouth. It's the most palatable dwelling you will find this far south. Sorry about singing. Arthur watched from a short distance. He put his hand to the locket, which he kept around his neck, hidden beneath his shirt. The hull of the Aurora felt warm against his back, even though the engines weren't running. She watched over the group, keeping them safe. He could almost feel her breathing with him, as though she was a living being. Maudie glanced over, frowned curiously, and beckoned him. She mouthed, "Are you all right?" "I'm not." He smiled and nodded, but tonight he felt on the outside. Solongo bounded over to him with her acai. "Come drink warm for your long journey." He shook his head. "I'm fine, thank you." She smiled and began walking back to the group. "Solongo." The young woman turned back. "Were you here when the last expedition passed?" Oh, was here. 10 years. Did you say anything when the last expedition was here? The 2 skyships?" "What you mean?" She frowned. "One of the ships, the Victorious, her fuel was stolen in the night. Did you see anyone take it? Did you hear anything?" Solongo paused for a while, as though working out his words, and then shook her head. "Sorry, Solongo sleep. Always long. When I wake, all ship's gone." She shrugged and laughed, then returned to the group. Behind the disintegrating huts of the shingle shore, white stones stood in a picket-fenced enclosure. Arthur stood and wandered over, drawn to them, and carefully opened the gate. He ran his hand over one of the stones and felt the indented symbol. "They're gravestones." Arthur jumped. He turned to see a figure behind him, wild hair tipped orange with the soft glow from her torch flame. "I'm sorry, I didn't mean to scare you. I was seeking a moment of calm," Harriet said. The gate creaked shut, and her feet crunched across the scattered pebbles. "Why do all the stones face south?" he said. They faced their last journey. Some were whalers, other explorers. Before the skyship, attempts were made in sea ships, but none survived. The waters close to the third continent are too unpredictable, with terrible fierce waves and areas filled with icebergs. "Not quite the Silent Sea, then." It was named not for the movement of the waves, but the silence of death for those who dare attempt to cross in it, she said. He rested his hand on one of the stones. So long ago was here the night the Victorious and Violetta were. She didn't hear a thing. Ah, the fuel theft. He wouldn't have done it. I know your father from university. He gave the occasional lecture on geology. Fascinating they were. He was a kind professor, and he knew his subject inside out. He seemed a true and honest man. So you don't believe it? People sometimes do things out of character when driven by high stakes. His heart sank. She put her hand on his shoulder, but my instinct tells me he didn't. Arthur smiled. The brief time our paths crossed, you must have been very young, but I do recall him mentioning his children. When you came to 4 Archanger Street, I recognised something in you. At first I couldn't place it. Then I realised there was something in the slant of your eyebrows, the freckles, the windswept hair, that determined stare. You look so like him, less the beard, of course. A cheer came from around the campfire as Welby finished another song. Arthur looked up at the clear sky, speckled with stars. The night breeze carried an ice chill ashore. I think Adora Vane had something to do with what happened, he said. It was certainly no accident that someone didn't want you to come looking for answers, and after the incident before this ordeal, it has certainly been on my mind. But what makes you suspect, Madam Vane? Do you know Armitage Wigglesworth's book in the library? Ah, his handwritten journal that precedes the book. My great-aunt was good friends with Wigglesworth. It's one of my favourites. I found hidden writing between the lines. It tells the truth about the awful things that the Vanes have done, things that have been kept secret for a long time. Hidden writing? It's revealed with lemon juice. There was a clue in the drawing. I'm impressed, Arthur Brightstorm. I had no idea. He told her what he'd read in the secret writing. She nodded thoughtfully. The Vanes are an explorer family who go back a long way. They're notoriously secretive. One hears whispered rumours, but they are quickly brushed away. The Vanes have sovereigns and a powerful name. If they want things hidden, I imagine there is always someone to bribe. Just after we received your letter at Beggins Hall. Yes, I was surprised that my note was not delivered successfully to Brightstorm House. It wasn't easy working out how to find you. The Begginses are the horrible people who were sent to live we were sent to live with in the slums after we found out about Dad. Our guardian, Miss Poacher, sold us to the Begginses. They treated us as their servants. You see, the insurer told us there was some clause in Dad's insurance, and we lost everything. How terrible for you. I'm so sorry, Arthur. Well, after we received your letter, we were visited by Madam Vane. She offered us a chance to live comfortably. She also tried to dissuade us from joining this crew by telling us you didn't have a worthy skyship. Harriet's eyes narrowed. Curious behaviour, indeed. But we must be careful of accusing without hard facts. What you have found out sets off alarm bells about Madam Vane, but I am afraid it's not enough. She paused. Even so, best we keep our distance from their ship where possible. Arthur nodded. They stood in silence for a while before Harriet said, This is the last post south of the world we know. Beyond this point there are no people, no traders. We enter the frozen third continent. The journey ahead will be tough. Are you ready for that, Arthur? If you have any doubt, now is the time to say. I'm ready, Harriet, he promised. You are a solver of problems, Arthur. I see it every day. You find a way. We will get to the South Polaris. We will finish what your father couldn't, and we will restore honour to your name. Her assurance was contagious. It reminded him of Dad. He always made him feel confident. I'm so glad you and Maudie made it to the ship. 13 is a very unlucky crew number, and we're going to need lots of luck in the coming moon cycle. She held the gate open for him. Come on, let's stop Salongo drowning the crew in her Akai, or they'll not be fit to fly. See you later.